In a world of gods and goddesses, Ristardt is given the mandate to choose the hero that'll defeat the demon lord. She goes on to pick one of the most powerful men to ever walk the earth, Ryuguin Seiya. The only problem is that this dude is so cautious that he won't even cross the street if he's not sure it's safe. Ironically, he ends up giving his life to save the world. A goddess named Ristardt is selected to handle an S-rank case in a world called Gaia Branda by picking its hero. This makes her panic and race back to her room like she forgot to stream the new episode of Demon Slayer. The 100-year-old is pretty low on the goddess scale, but wasn't expecting to handle an S-rank case. She then sits to scroll through names of possible heroes from Japan, but they all start to sound alike. She falls over, and a paper bearing Ryuguin Seiya's name falls on her face. She's impressed by his stats, so she prances around and proceeds to draw a magic circle to summon him. He appears, and the goddess is immediately love-struck when she sees how handsome he is, but regains herself in time to tell him why she summoned him. Seiya is too skeptical to believe her, and proceeds to ask a bunch of questions. To prove her point, Ristardt tells him to check his status, but he checks properties instead. He then admits that her story has gained a little more credibility. He finally checks his status, but even after seeing this, Seiya proves stubborn. She tries enticing him with her backing him up, but he doesn't think much of it. So much so that he doesn't follow her when she opens a portal to Gaia Branda. He pins her against the door, and she thinks he wants to bang. But the dude starts doing push-ups and asks for a chance to prepare himself instead. I know you think he's gay, but at that moment, Ristardt remembers that he's impossibly cautious. She speaks with Ariadua, who advises her to support Seiya and provide him with amenities. Ristardt shoots up at the mention of feeding the hero and gets told to treat him like a friend, not a god. She gets him some food, but he makes her taste it, with tears in her eyes. She then provides him with a bed, toilet, and shower, and gives him a buzzer to ring when he's done training. 4 days pass in silence, and then a week later, the buzzer finally rings. Ristardt rushes over and later realizes that his level increased from 1 to 15. He tries to stall, but she opens a portal and pulls him to Gaia Branda, the town of Idona, to be exact. They come across a little girl who compliments Ristardt, seeing as men don't find her attractive. She then clings to Seiya's leg until the goddess asks her for directions to the weapons shop. They arrive soon enough, and Ristardt hands Seiya some money. Unfortunately, he asks for 3 sets of armor, so she swipes the money and buys him some equipment by herself. She also has control issues. They head to another shop where he gets an outrageous number of smoke bombs, medicinal herbs, and antidotes. As they pack, Ristardt offers to help the hero navigate, but he doesn't trust her. Nina then shows up and assures him that there are only slimes around. She even gives him a warding charm, which he skeptically accepts. True to her words, they come across a slime soon enough. Seiya is so cautious that he hides first and then attacks it with one overpowered spell after another. This ends up attracting Chaos Machina, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon Lord. Apparently, the Demon Lord had sensed the hero being summoned and sent her to a place with weak enemies. Ristardt scans the enemy. She's a level 66 opponent. Seiya wastes no time running away, like a real man should. The goddess then follows suit. Seiya responds by putting up multiple smoke screens and makes the goddess open a portal to the divine realm. Meanwhile, Chaos Machina is hot on their trail. He then uses a fire spell to stall her while they escape. After arrival, he throws Ristardt out like that one girl who barfed on your pee-pee and proceeds to train for 4 days. Due to impatience, Ristardt uses her crystal ball to check for danger and sees Chaos Machina threatening to kill off a villager for every 10 minutes that they don't show up. I wonder how they took her seriously with her jugs out. Anyway, Ristardt panics and interrupts Seiya's training with the terrible news. He continues training like she didn't say anything, and it gets worse when he finds out that 10 minutes is 16 hours in the divine realm. Meanwhile, Chaos Machina promises to kill Nina's father next, and soon enough, she promises to kill the little girl too. Ristardt is pissed at herself for picking such a coward as a hero, so she threatens to leave. Fortunately, Seiya stops her by the entrance as he wears his armor. A quick look at his stats reveal an upgrade to level 21, alongside a boost in his abilities. Chaos Machina grows impatient, but as she's about to behead Nina's father, Seiya comes through with a windblade technique. The demon laughs at him for missing, but Seiya only did it to free Nina's father. As soon as the civilians leave, Chaos Machina notices the bump in the hero's abilities and reveals her ace in the hole. She becomes buff as hell as a red essence envelopes her. She continues to push back the poor boy until she feels like she's not doing enough. Chaos then stabs herself and releases her demonic curse. This allows her to transform into an even bigger beast with wings. The demon delivers a blow capable of splitting the ground, but Seiya blocks it with one hand. This makes Restart try again and again to access his stats, but the hero blocks her with the fake out skill. She eventually forces her way through, and sees that he's at level 37, with even more outrageous skills. Chaos Machina then flies into the sky to use her demonic delete to end things. Unfortunately for her, Seiya joins her in the sky and activates his Phoenix Drive. He pierces the center of the demon with his flaming rod, and she shatters into tiny little pieces. The town returns to normal, and Restart hugs the hell out of the hero. She later asks why he hid his powers from her, and he reveals that they could come across an enemy that would probe her brain for the information. The villagers come forth to show their gratitude, but Seiya is uninterested. He then gathers the pieces of Chaos Machina alongside her sword and releases Hell's Fire on them. He doesn't stop at one spell and does it a couple more times before increasing the intensity. Basically, Seiya burns down the village alongside some of its indigenes, so the mayor begs his arsonist ass to leave town. On their way out, Nina and her dad approach them, and Seiya takes all of the man's money before they leave. Restart thinks they're heading to the next town, but gets surprised when the hero declares that they're heading back to the Divine Realm. He compares her to medicinal herbs, and then gets her to open a portal back home. Restart checks in with Ariadua to complain about the hero's continuous working out, and she claims that she wants to be like Ariadua, who saved 300 worlds. Apparently, the goddess had failed to save one of them, and as she rounds up lamenting about it, Seiya barges in. The teapot falls from her hand and she draws closer to the hero immediately. It's that savior of worlds, Riz. Quite irresistible, I might add. Anyway, he complains bitterly about remaining stagnant no matter how much he works out. Restart tries getting him to fight monsters on Gayabranda, but Arya suggests that he trains with some gods instead. Restart then pulls her aside to complain, but Arya already has a god in mind for the training. She then takes Seiya to Cerseus, the divine blade, and introduces them to each other. Seiya goes straight to training after threatening Cerseus not to give up halfway through. They clash swords soon enough, and the divine blade is impressed. After day 1 of training, he admits to Restarte that Seiya is talented, and by day 2, he's frightened at how much strength the hero has gathered in such a short while. Cerseus wishes he could use his full strength to fight, and by day 3, he lashes out because of how badly Seiya beat his ass. He then sadly exits the refectory. Day 4 takes the cake, seeing as he doesn't even show up for lunch. Restart then stumbles upon him hiding out like a real man. Cerseus explains how Seiya refuses to be content with being 3 times stronger, and laments that the hero is a super berserker. He's not done complaining when Seiya shows up, asking him to oil up his cheeks and return to training. This pushes Cerseus to dump his blade into the sea and renounce the way of the sword. Unfortunately, it doesn't save him from Seiya. Ishtar summons Rista to warn her of the imminent danger the future holds, and that she has to meet her allies in a church in the town of Simul. She meets Seiya pounding down Cerseus and gets him to stop. They then portal their way to Simul, and at the city gates, exiting indigenes warn them of undead forces. Seiya immediately goes shopping for 1,000 bottles of holy water after finding out they could help defeat the undead. Rista only lets him buy 10. As I said, control issues. They then head to the church in Simul, as instructed by Ishtar. There, they meet Alulu and Mash, children bearing dragonkin blood. Caution moves Seiya to empty a bottle of holy water on the head of the priest, and he turns out to be an undead. Haters will claim that this was by luck. Don't listen. Alulu and Mash then pull out their weapons to fight the monster, but Seiya had already cut up the priest without anyone seeing. When asked why he suspected the priest, the hero claims that it's because he was the oldest person there. The undead priest then brags about a force of 10,000 approaching, and as usual, Seiya uses an unnecessary amount of power to cremate his remains. The Church of Simul serves as collateral damage for the arsonist disguised as a hero. Afterwards, Alulu and Mash introduce themselves, only to get doused with holy water. Restart and the nun aren't left out either. After checking the stats of the kids, Seiya declares that he doesn't need them. No one needs kids. Period. Seiya goes off about not needing Alulu and Mash, and they try to prove their usefulness. At that moment, the town's captain arrives and interrogates them about what happened. The nun awakes and fills them in. She also refers to Seiya and Restart as sent by God. The hero then strikes a deal with the captain for 1,000 gold coins, offering to defeat the undead without any help. He talks down on Mash because why not, and the dragonkin stumps away in anger. Seiya also downplays Ristart's importance and suddenly flies towards the enemy, leaving a pissed-off Ristart to summon wings and chase after him. The hero increases his speed, so the goddess enhances her wings to keep up. Unfortunately, her feathers fall off in the process. Seiya then returns in all of his glory, grabs Ristart's hand, and zooms off with so much speed that her jugs spill out. 10,000 undead keep barreling forward as Seiya and Ristart observe them from above. He summons a meteor strike, which takes them out in their thousands, and admits that he got the idea when he was pummeling Circeus. He does this a second time, and wipes out the whole army as promised. Seiya then laments about his MP dropping too low. It's at 13,500, by the way, from 15,000. Dude has a problem. Elulu gets worried, so she tracks down Ristart and tells her that Mash is nowhere to be found. They then pay Seiya a visit and see that he has been practicing his new synthesis skill. He shows Ristart the perfect platinum sword and admits that he made it using strands of her hair. A mirror gets delivered to Seiya's room, and after opening it, it reveals how ugly Ristart would have been without her D-cups. I'm messing with you. It just shows Mash as a hostage of Death Magla, one of the 4 heavenly kings. He threatens to cut up Mash, but when he gives the boy a chance to beg for his life, he only kisses Seiya's ass for defeating 1,000 men. The hero then instructs Ristart to open a portal to the Divine Realm. He uses Dimension Blade to cut off Death Magla's hand, and portals to the Divine Realm to get help from Ishtar. In turn, the great goddess locates the boy and portals Seiya and Rista to Death Magla's lair. Upon arrival, he immediately attacks with Hellfire Flame, but it's useless against Death Magla's Phyrus, a dark flame monster. The Heavenly King and Ristart get into an argument, and the goddess checks the stats of Phyrus, only to discover that his defense is over 100,000. Apparently, ice magic is its only weakness, and Death Magla is stupid enough to explain how to defeat Phyrus. Seiya then reveals that despite ice being contrary to his fire attribute, he had prepared for it already. The hero proceeds to punch Phyrus with a brunt skill, and then follows up by turning Phyrus into pure ice with an ice bracelet he created using ice and Ristart's hair. He even reveals other bracelets, and then shatters Phyrus to pieces by thrusting him with his rod of flame. Mash finally wakes up, and his sister, companion, Hell, Elulu, is so overjoyed that she cries. The moment is barely over when Seiya steps in and declares that they'll both be his baggage carriers. In turn, Mash bows his head and asks that the hero accept him as an apprentice. The youngin then offers to show him the dragon's den. Apparently, Elulu and Mash were dropped by a dragon 16 years back, alongside a prophecy that they would work with the hero to save the world. The den is prophesied to hold the seal that they need, but Seiya brings Elulu and Mash to the Divine Realm first. He locates Circeus, who has abandoned swordsmanship for cooking, and blatantly refuses to have some of his cake. Seiya shows him a sword, and the poor man crouches and bursts into tears, up until he discovers that he'll be training Mash. Up next, they hand Elulu over to Hestiaca, goddess of fire, for training. On their way back, Ristart bumps into Valkyrie, the goddess of destruction, and gets harassed in every meaning of the word. I'm talking intense groping and condescending speeches. Seiya then calls Valkyrie an exhibitionist as he asks her to train him. This pisses her off, so she promises to rip him apart. Luckily, he's saved by Ariadoa, who pleads with Valkyrie to forgive him and offers her huge jugs in sacrifice. Ariadoa then introduces Seiya to Adanala, goddess of war. She laughs hysterically as she agrees to train him, and shows off her divine speed, which easily entices Seiya. First day of training, Ristart meets Adanala on a break, and they discuss how different the hero is. The goddess of war seems taken by Seiya, and the hero calls her away soon enough. Day 2 and Ristart sees Mash and Seiya having lunch. The hero soon abandons them, leaving Mash to explain that he has been learning about Seiya's mindset. Later on, Ristart sees Adanala looking different and discovers that the poor goddess has fallen in love with Seiya. She breaks the news about their trip to Gaia Branda, but Adanala is already in too deep to care. Mash bids Circeus goodbye, and Ristart realizes that he's now a level 16. Unfortunately, Elulu is still a level 8. Hestiaca then calls Ristart aside to tell her that Elulu is talentless, and that she can only make it by selling feet pictures to strangers. The whole crew gathers to head out, but Adanala comes running and requests to follow Seiya on his mission. She presents a homemade cake and even calls it her heart, but the hero rejects her in the worst way, by admitting that he's not into women. She then smashes the cake and proceeds to rampage the Divine Realm in anguish. Seiya totally ignores her and heads out with his party to the dragon's den. On the way, they see an orc, but the hero's automatic phoenix attacks it alongside every other opponent under level 30. This saddens Elulu and Mash because it makes them feel useless. Restart then attempts to check Seiya's stats, but they literally attack her eyes. They arrive at Azale village where they buy 5 torches for the road. Elulu and Mash both have birthmarks which glow. Upon entry, they overhear a magic circle asking them to step into it. Seiya puts a lizard first to check for traps before stepping into it himself. They're transported to the dragon village and are welcomed by a dragon newt called Lagos. The team is taken to see Livier, the great mother of dragons, who shows Mash how to fully transform. She then reveals that Elulu is to become Exation, the ultimate sword, by offering up her life. Livier makes it clear that Elulu's self-sacrifice is the only way to end the Demon King's reign of terror. She goes into details about the hordes of monsters that will attack and adds that she envies Elulu. This dampens the mood of the whole team, especially that of Mash. As they walk back, he asks if Elulu is certain about her choice, and the youngin looks to Restarte for support. Unfortunately, the goddess looks to Seiya for support, but he's busy buying seeds to increase his speed. He announces that what she must do is obvious, so Elulu runs away thinking that she must sacrifice herself. They're invited to feast later on, but it is in fact the ceremony to turn Elulu into Exation. The poor girl is meant to jump into the dragon abyss, and she puts up a painful smile as she bids everyone farewell. Mash tries to stop her, but gets blocked by guards. Even Elulu gets unsolicited help from guards when she hesitates. Seiya then disrupts the sacrifice and infuriates the queen by calling her a lizard crone. Restart laughs at her, and then promises that they will find some other way to save the world. Mash transforms into a dragon newt to fight off the guards, but falls on his ass soon enough. The same thing happens to Restart before the queen reveals that she put a paralytic in their food. She's shocked when Seiya defeats 2 of her guards. He then confesses that he vomited the cookies they had given him. The queen has no choice but to transform into a dragon and fly over to where the hero and Elulu are standing. She's shocked once again when Seiya pulls out the dragon killer, a sword Seiya synthesized specially. He attacks her with an atomic split slash and rushes to save Elulu from her grasp. Levier then places a curse on Elulu and the necklace around her neck begins to kill her. Dude, women are ruthless. Seiya gives her one warning before attacking her with his Phoenix Drive technique. Unfortunately, she just bounces back by upgrading herself into the ultimate dragon wall. The hero then consumes all his speed seeds and peels out a second dragon killer sword. On top of that, he activates the technique he learned from Adenala and increases his attacks against Levier, pushing her to the edge of the abyss. Seiya continues to strike her until she gives up her ultimate wall. He then counters her flames with a wind attack and sends the queen falling to her death. He then portrays a fake Igzazion to deceive the indigenes of Dragon Village, and their dumb asses commend him for killing their queen. Afterwards, they return to the cave, and Elulu flirts heavily with Mash. So much so that Restart sends them off for some privacy. She then scolds Seiya for plucking her hair out and points out that the Exation was fake. They head out together but meet the Imperial Knights gathered at the cave entrance. The Roseguard Imperial Knights come running to Seiya with news of another heavenly king on the loose. The Knights see Seiya ascend and immediately conclude that he's got to be related to Jesus somehow. They believe he can defeat Beelzebub, a demon disguised as a fly that controls insect monsters and terrorizes Olga Forest. Seiya and his party fly to the forest and sneak around to observe the horde of insects. Rystarda is surprised by how fast they are, and soon enough, they witness the Roseguard Knights make the mistake of firing arrows at the flies. The insects easily evade all the arrows, leaving the hero and his team to watch as they drop over 100 men from the sky to their bloody deaths. Afterwards, they head back to the scene and see Rosalie, leader of the Knights, paying her last respects to the fallen soldiers. They then return to the fortress to regroup with elders of the town. The meeting is delayed when Seiya makes them pointlessly check everywhere for spies. It yields no results, and the same goes for the meeting. The hero then opts to leave to train for 3 days, and later mentions that he was observing when Beelzebub killed the soldiers. This annoys Rosalie, so she confronts him for letting her men die. Seiya blames her lack of strategy instead, and she gets so angry that she tries to clap his cheeks. The hero easily stops her and returns the slap with a vengeance. She tries again, and the same thing repeats itself, until Seiya leaves her cheeks all swollen. Amidst tears, she pulls her sword, but it's pointless because Sakya doesn't even apologize. Instead, He gets Restart to open a portal to the divine realm and leaves Rosalie growling like a mad dog. They go in search of Metis, the goddess of archery, and Restart asks her to train Seiya. The hero is interested in shooting many arrows at once, so Metis demonstrates her shining arrow ability by using it to break off an entire tree. He then asks Lulu to teach him how to use her flaming arrow. Despite the girl's belief, Seiya catches onto the technique almost immediately and aims at a nearby apple. Metis is impressed, so she agrees to train Seiya in aerial warfare. Meanwhile, Lulu is depressed because of how quickly her technique was mastered, but Mash is more interested in finding a god to train him. They come across Circeus, who breaks the news about Adonala's delirium ever since Seiya left. Apparently, she's out to kill the hero. Restart later talks to Ariadne about it, but the goddess thinks Seiya will be fine. She then senses Mash's dormant power and offers to help him unseal the dragon god transformation. Even Lulu isn't left out. Restart then pays Adonala a visit, and the delirious goddess drills Restart with her crazy eyes peering into her soul. She heads straight to the divine forest to warn Seiya, but Adonala appears behind her and pulls out her sword to fight the hero. A simple pat on the head gets Adonala to melt back into loving him. He then sends her off so he can continue training. Restart heads back to Ariadne for another free therapy session and gets to see Mash release Dragon Metamorphosis in his right hand as an added bonus. Lulu, on the other hand, touches him with her delay skill and the dude moves. In slow-mo, she then uses haste skill to quicken his movements. Afterwards, the goddess thanks Ariadne for helping with the kids and mentions that Seiya is training with Metis. This freaks out Aria so much that she spills her tea before spilling the tea about Metis being sent to the divine forest because she sexually devours heroes. See what I did there? I know you did. Rista runs to the divine forest with everything in her and meets Metis all tied up and naked, asking Seiya to free her with the shining arrow technique she taught him. Seiya shoots her head instead, and she breaks free in annoyance. Metis pulls out the arrow and gets on all fours to attack the hero. As she tries to attack him, Seiya shoots 2 arrows into her eyes and 1 into her mouth, but she just pulls them out and aims to take down Mash instead. She corners the poor boy, but as she jumps to ravage him, Seiya shoots 5 arrows simultaneously and immobilizes the goddess against a tree, spreading everything for the public to see. They then head back to the fortress and get told that Rosalie had gone to the lair of the flies alone. They chase her to the Olga forest, where they meet Rosalie already trying to reach Beelzebub. Seiya then offers to snipe the demon, using Rosalie as a distraction, but she gets captured by the monster soon enough. The hero then sends Rista to get her and clears all the flies that try to obstruct her. She comes face to face with Beelzebub and mistakenly reveals Seiya's plan. The monster then flies higher into the sky with Rista on his tail. He's shocked when Seiya's arrow still reaches him, and this makes him drop Rosalie. Luckily, Restart is fast enough to catch her and Seiya attacks during this window. Beelzebub dodges the arrows, but they come back as automatic birds and burst a hole right through him. The other arrows converge in an explosion, turning Beelzebub into nothingness. Afterwards, the hero and Rosalie face off. In an argument that gets her acting like a dog once again, she then gives up and leaves him alone. He asks for Lulu and Mash's help, but ends up shooting down the remaining insects alone. He then has Mash gather up their corpses using his dragon hand and Lulu's haste skill before finally setting them ablaze. The poor boy feels like he trained just to become a broom for the hero. Rosalie then drops by to tell them of a legendary armor meant to help the hero defeat the demon lord. They portal to Azael to find the sacred armor, but meet the village on fire. Apparently, summoner Kilkapul, one of the demon lord's heavenly kings, had summoned an adamantoise beast just to feed it the legendary armor. He then declares that it's time for Seiya to be taken down. Kilkapul kneels within a magic circle and reveals the heads of his wife and son. He then stabs himself, all to summon the hyperconceptual Reaper, Thanatos. And Seiya and Rosalie only see scrambled stats when they check him out. Seiya uses his double wind blade to slash him, but he just becomes 2 monsters instead, and then returns the attack. The hero realizes that this is an enemy much too powerful for him, so he picks up his people and runs to the divine realm, but he's not safe there. Not this time. The Reaper manipulates dimensions and shows up in the divine realm. In turn, 3 gods come forward to fight against him and fire powerful attacks that end up having no effect. Seiya flees the scene, and his crew follows suit almost immediately. The invincible fists of Arx and Kabono's 100 hand slap both have no effects on this monster. It goes on to defeat every god that tries to stop it. The hero then manipulates Adonala to fight him. But as her ultimate eternal sword cuts through Thanatos, he becomes multiple people, and they all beat her up together. It continues to chase Seiya till they reach Valkyrie's lair, where he sets up the Reaper to ruin her painting. The angry goddess takes it out on Thanatos, and after trying her Shattered Break and Astral Break techniques in futility, she releases her divine power and summons the first gate of Valhalla to swallow the Reaper whole. Afterwards, blood escapes her body, and she reveals that Valhalla Gate uses part of the caster's life force as a catalyst. The sick goddess rolls around in her own blood, with a sick smile on her face. This feat makes Seiya insist that she train him. She then rewards his persistence by agreeing. Alulu and Mash run off to continue their training with Ariadoa. Meanwhile, Seiya forges a new sword using a piece of the legendary armor and some of Ristart's hair. The goddess hugs him tightly, but he manages to get her off when he announces that she stinks. She runs into Circeus at the bath and gets told that Ishtar wants to see her. Ristarti meets up with the great goddess and gets warned about the fourth heavenly king making a move on Gaia Brandy. Even Ishtar announces that she stinks more than a skunk with Bio. The next day, Ristart visits Ariadoa looking red as ever. She had almost peeled her skin trying to wash her stink off. Mash can now achieve full dragon metamorphosis, and Alulu upgraded her haste skill to quick. They track down Seiya, only to see him and Valkyrie getting freaky in the sheets. Rystart freaks out and presents him with a doll she made from yanking out her own hair. This creeps out Valkyrie, so she leaves the room. Soon enough, the hero dresses up, and they all go through a portal to Gaia Branda. Eraser Kaiser, the fourth heavenly king of the Demon Lord. People then nominate Warmaster to fight against the treacherous demon. Before Eraser can do anything, Warmaster slices him into pieces using his crushing Saint's Light. He proceeds to wipe out Eraser's army with a one swipe of his sword, and Ristart realizes that his stats are off the charts. After these heroic acts, Warmaster suddenly turns into a baby, much to the surprise of everyone. Rosalie shows up to carry her father and offers to explain things if Seiya and his team visit the castle. The hero would rather patrol the city, so the team go for a walk. They pass by a bar and then a casino, but Seiya turns down Ristart's request for them to visit either. He then comes upon a medicinal herb stand, and the goddess claims she can heal better than the herb. This leads to a standoff, where they experiment on an injured man. Sadly, the herbs win by a landslide, leaving Ristart crouching in defeat. They finally arrive at the castle, where Rosalie convinces Seiya and Rista not to allow her father to participate in coming battles for fear of his old age getting the better of him. Seiya doesn't hesitate to turn down the War Master's help when they come face to face. Unfortunately, word comes to the castle that survivors from the Demon Lord's forces are attacking the capital. He then asks Mash and Alulu to accompany him, leaving a saddened Ristart behind. Warmaster explains to Rystart that the reason gods and goddesses can't die is because they only wield their virtual souls. He adds that their real souls are locked away somewhere in the divine realm, where time stands still. He says that the Demon Lord owns a weapon called Chain Destruction, a weapon that can kill both the virtual and real souls alike. Warmaster then pulls out the God-Eater sword, and it brims with evil power. He explains how he had met the Demon Lord and submitted to his ultimate power. He then captures Rista with the sword, and just as he's about to deal the finishing blow, Seiya interrupts him. Thankfully, the hero releases the goddess and kicks her to Mash and Alulu's direction, and explains how he thought of every possible outcome. Warmaster spits up some blood and proceeds to swallow an evil orb. Handed to him by the Demon Lord, he unleashes unbelievable power and transforms into a demonkin. This makes him become much more energetic and even younger. Seiya takes off all the bracelets weighing him down and calls forth his platinum sword. With this, they battle it out at unimaginable speed. Ristart remembers that the hero never said he was ready perfectly, and watches as he gets struck down by Warmaster. In retaliation, he summons Phoenix Thrust, but still gets his arm cut off. Seiya then uses the 9th Valkyria, Counterbreak, to take off Warmaster's hand. He sacrificed his hand as the catalyst to achieve this great feat. Seiya pierces Warmaster with a flaming sword, and he transforms back to his old self. Ristarta then heals up Seiya's arm, and he uses it to slap the shit out of Rosalie as he forces her to share in her father's last moments. He gets buried soon enough, leaving Rosalie to rule over the Empire. Seiya passes out for 3 days after that, and the first thing he addresses after waking up is how to beat the Demon Lord, and then offers them a chance to blow off some steam for the first time in his life. Rista, Alulu, and Mash go shopping, hoping to meet with Seiya afterwards. At the shop, Rista gets stuck fighting with the attendant about bikinis until she settles for one with holes in places I'm not allowed to say. She and the attendant shake on it before the goddess moves on. They return to the castle later on, but Seiya doesn't show up. She checks everywhere in town, but comes up empty, so a distraught Ristarta approaches Ariadua about it. In turn, she gets taken to see Ishtar in the room where the true souls of the gods are kept. She then breaks it to Restart that the hero had gone to fight the demon lord all by himself. Rista laments in disbelief that such a cautious person would wander off alone. Ishtar then shows them Seiya's stats, revealing that they've been maxed out since he fought in Dragon Village. It becomes apparent to Mash and Alulu that Seiya had the fake exation, and Ishtar explains how he only learned Valhalla Gate from Valkyrie, because his stats could no longer increase. Ristart crouches as she wonders why he would go so far to protect them. In turn, Ishtar shows them Ristart, who was Tiana back then, Ariadoa, and Seiya from 100 years ago. They were in a world called Exphoria, and the hero was so carefree that he never had a strategy going into battle. Reminds me of your dad when he had you. Anyway, they were attacked by beasts, and Colt, a member of their party, got his leg chopped off. The hero also got a hole in his chest, but managed to finish his enemies in time. They went on surviving by the hair of their teeth until time came for them to take on the Demon Lord. Ishtar shows them how he managed to slash down the Demon Lord, and how the entire party joked about being at their lowest. Unfortunately, Colt got eaten by the Demon Lord, who regenerated instantly. He then picked up Ariadoa next and ate her whole. Tiana had no magic left, so she couldn't heal Seiya. His carefree nature made him lose his entire party, including the mother of his unborn child, to the Demon Lord. The mother of this child was Rista, who now weeps as Ishtar tells her that she was reborn as a goddess. After finding all of this out, the goddess insists on joining Seiya in battle. Arya tries to stop her, but it doesn't work. With Ishtar's permission, Restart, Alulu, and Mash portal their way to the heart of the Demon Lord's lair. Upon arrival, Restart can feel the presence of chain destruction. They then see clashes up ahead, so they climb their way up until they meet Seiya battling the Demon Lord. The hero then uses the Gate of Valhalla on him, but it's not enough to subdue this beast of a man. The Demon Lord transforms into his true form, a beast with outrageous power, and begins to push open the gates of Valhalla. Seiya then uses Phoenix Thrust, which gets kicked back with enough force to make him cough up blood. He proceeds to try eternal sword attacks before using synthesis on the spikes of the gate, transforming them into lethal weapons. Next, he adds the power of Valhalla to that of his sword and stabs the Demon Lord in the head, until he finally gets swallowed by the Valhalla gates. The recoil from using the gates leaves him bleeding out on the floor. This almost takes his life, but a love-struck Rista breaks the rules and summons all of her goddess powers to heal him. The more she heals him, the more he bleeds out, so she encompasses him with her wings until the recoil stops. Everyone is happy to see him okay. Restart is worse because she tries to kiss him and gets her pale ass turned down. Their joy is short-lived when the gates of Valhalla turn up again, representing the Demon Lord's last attempt to take everyone and everything down with him. Seiya immediately summons a second gate, as though his life meant nothing to him. The second gate swallows both the Demon King and the first gate of Valhalla together. It then laughs at Seiya for making such a dumbass decision. The toll it takes on the hero's body doesn't heal despite all of Rista's efforts. The more she tries to heal him, the more his body takes damage. In his last moments, he commends Alulu for her support magic. Leaving her in tears, he then proclaims that there's no one Mash can't beat, and this leaves him in tears too. At that moment, one of his legs disappears, but he quickly embraces Restart. He then realizes why the situation feels familiar and quips that he was able to save her this time. Right before their eyes, Seiya disintegrates and disappears into thin air. Sadness fills the room and tears stain the eyes of everyone present. His sacrifice had saved Gayabranda. Afterwards, Restart says her goodbyes to Rosalie and then to Alulu and Mash, who got appointed as Imperial Knights. They share one last hug, and later on, a distraught Rista portals back to the Divine Realm in the presence of Rosalie and the Imperial Knights. Upon arrival, she gets a faint sense of Seiya's presence, and she rushes to his room. She sees it empty, and it breaks her heart again. Restart then spends her remaining time in bed until Ariadoa comes to get her. She helps her comb her hair and promises to reduce her punishment. Both goddesses then head to Ishtar, and on the way, Adonala sympathizes with her. Circeus bakes her a cake, and Midas just came for some trouble and ends up crawling away. Even Valkyrie encourages her to chin up right before she steps into Ishtar's chambers. Upon entry, the great goddess punishes her for inappropriate use of her powers by sentencing her to summon a new hero for the damned world of Exphoria, a world already dominated by a demon lord. Ariadoa tries to go in place of Restarte, but Ishtar isn't having it. Restarte's healing powers will be blocked, so she can't help whatever hero she chooses. And if she can't save Exphoria, her status as a goddess will be stripped. Ariadoa mouths off until Ishtar gets on her feet. The goddess then pleads for forgiveness. Rista is still distraught until she looks at the list of heroes Ishtar gives her to choose from. Ryugen Seiya made the list, and, unfortunately, the dude is still impossibly cautious.